Hello, uh, and welcome to this episode of the Figaf show, what you would call it. I do hope you can hear me. I guess that's the main purpose, to ensure everything is working. Hello, and it seems like it is. Cool. Yes. So if you joined, welcome. Really looking forward to have you here. Yes, and comments. Hey, welcome. Hey, it's even from Facebook. That's good. Cool. Hope you're enjoying. But yeah, welcome. Thanks for joining. Where are you guys from? I guess that's always the interesting question. And I think that the more interesting thing that is probably more relevant for today, what's your governance process when we are talking about SAP CPI delivery or SAP PI delivery processes? I guess we need to focus on that part today. Yes, let me see if I can actually see the comments here. Cool, and welcome. Thanks for all the viewers already. If you are here now, please, I don't know if you can do it on Facebook. I guess you have the option to subscribe to the page. On YouTube, do click like and click subscribe. I really appreciate that. But there's a few minutes before we get started. And if there's any questions, then just put them into the chat and let's cover those things. But yeah, for now, just thanks for joining, and I hope you can hear me. I guess that is pretty important. So if you can hear me, just put a hello in the comment. I would appreciate that. Yeah, so I've actually been looking forward to this presentation to show you these new things that we're able to do with DevOps, and I hope you will like it. I guess that's always the interesting question and comments to understand what's going on. And let me just put this one into YouTube, I think. Cool. Yes. Hey, good. Perfect. Hello, Sven. Glad you could make it. Yeah, so I guess we still have a few minutes before we get started, and I should probably remove this countdown timer or the banner or something. Let me just remove the timer. That just does not make sense anymore. Like that. Oh, we're actually starting now. Cool. Haha. So always good. Cool. And I see there's still people joining. Let me just get this other view over here. That's not that. Cool. Good. So let me just get started. So I think we are ready to start. So thanks for joining. I appreciate you taking your time off this morning, afternoon, if we got some Australians here. So the idea was to make it a little earlier my time so we could get some of these down under people to join. So that would be, I guess, the idea. If you are from down under and appreciate this, either give it a like, click, yeah, or write. It's good to have the timing like this. Then I will try to plan other events at this point in time. Good. So yes, thanks for joining me. So the idea I wanted to cover today is how do you handle DevOps in an SAP PI PO world? Because, well, let's face it, the transport and the governance process there have not really changed for the last at least 15 years. But we'll cover that a little more, and then what you can actually do to improve that. So, yes. That's not done. Oh, cool. That was actually this one. Much better view. Cool. So the things I wanted to cover today, and maybe I will make me a little smaller, is the following things, and I will remove the banner. Is what I see as the things going on in the integration world, and then we'll cover what the tool can do and how you can actually do some kind of DevOps process. Obviously, it will not be possible to cover everything because of the locked nature of the PI world. We will cover how you can do testing, how you can support the process, and how you can get started with the Figaf tools. And if there's any questions along the way, just put them into the chat, and I will try to answer them as good as and subscribe to it. So, yes, PIPO is actually here to stay for a long duration of time. There are, I think, some of the numbers is 1,000, 12,000 SAP PI instances running or customers, and my thought is that these customers have at least 100 interfaces. There are some that has smaller amounts, and they would obviously not really count, but I think most bigger companies would have a lot more than that. So that's 1 million interfaces, and that just is a huge number of people that needs to manage these things. And the question is, how do you actually manage something like that in an easy to control way? Yes, so PI is obviously supported until 2027, and you can get it extended until 2030. It is still the workhorse for a large majority of the SAP integration world, at least if you talk with on-prem, older integrations, a lot of these different things. There are, if I would see that customers will be starting to migrate to CPI over the next couple of years because the platform becomes a lot more agile. There's hopefully potentially some cost savings that going from the PI to the CPI will give you some advantages there. Obviously, there's still a couple of gaps that need to be closed before it really is there, and I think the biggest is the ability to resend messages. Obviously, you can build it into your flows, but it just becomes too huge of a burden. There's the B2B or EDI capabilities that is being improved, but I still think there's some way to go in that perspective. And then you have missing an on-prem version that you can deploy in near your landscape. But as I understand, that's a part of the roadmap. I think the goal is 2021. I was hoping that it will be a little earlier, but I guess if you want to have the on-prem and use it for real, you probably are looking at late 2021, as I would seem it, because it has taken a little time to getting the Cloud Foundry environment to run, and I don't know if they're able to take that full capability and use it, or if they need to recode the whole thing so it works in a different way. And if you want and are considering migrations, so I did create another Uh, I did create another event a couple of weeks ago with Jeroen from Proculus, where we talked a lot about the migrations and what were going on there. So I do recommend that you check that one out. That's always, if you haven't upgraded to 7.5, that's definitely worth watching and seeing what is going on there. But take that after you've viewed this, probably the best approach. Cool. So some common problems with integration, and at least in the standard world that we come from. So a lot of times you have this standard way of delivering SAP integrations. It's probably your old delivery model that was implemented when you implemented ECC a long time back, and you wanted to actually figure out how you can improve this process. And maybe there's actually some people in the organization that's saying, hey, this is actually good. We will be using this for future reference. You probably also have a lot of outsourced development where it sometimes can be difficult to actually control what they are delivering and are they following the guidelines that you set up for them. So auditing and documentation is one of the things I've been working a lot with. And I would say no one really got that right. Some are doing something which is always better, but I still see there's a lot of room for improvement, and you can actually automate a lot of these tasks, because I think the first couple of interfaces I did, it was take some documentation, copy it directly from the repository and directory all the different objects that we're using. And I was just like, really doesn't make sense. Now I think it's a little less that you don't need to document everything, because once you make a small change, it's anyway out of date. And I think another challenge is that you'd often postpone upgrades or updates because you really don't understand what type of integration you have and the consequences behind it. So people are not as engaged or being able to handle this. So on this one, I really would like your feedback. Are there anything I missed here? Are there any way you're transporting CPI or PI content that I have not listed here? Please let me know in the comments. So the standard process, I would say, has not changed since the beginning of XI. So I think when I started, the only way to do transport was that you could trigger a file export on the server, and then you needed to move that file export to the next system, and you could do that with Unix mounts, or you could move the file manually. So that was not really the best approach. Then you got the option to do file export, and I think also in the first couple of years or first year with XI 3.0, it became possible to save data to CTS Plus, and I think that's actually what you have at the moment. Active Control, all these other tools, they are still using CTS Plus, the file export, and so JAM, obviously, all these things. And it's just a layer that, as I assume it, that will enable you to synchronize the CTS deployment a little better, but you will still need to go into anyone else experienced that my voice is going away? Please do let me know if there's problems with that. Active Control, these things is something, but they still lack these things. Okay, cool. Good. So some of the transport challenges, and I guess all of these, thanks, Benjamin, works good. So it's difficult to actually see what Yes, none of these things is actually PI friendly. It works okay if you're doing ABAP, where it can extract all objects, understand what is in it. In PI world, it's a lot different. You don't really have the ability to see what is in this this import, so it's difficult to see. You can see what is in an import, but it requires a lot of extra steps. What is imported to each system is also sometimes challenging, and when we're looking at the API, you can see that there's an import of directory objects, but you cannot really see how these are configured after that import. So you lack a lot of governance, what's actually being there. And you still have these manual steps. You need to configure communication channels. As I see it, when I've talked to people, my really scientific estimate is that probably like 50% of the customers are using CTS Plus, and the others is just using file import and export. And yeah, I think I'll not go into details about the file import export. No. And then you got this thing that people can actually do undocumented changes in the system without actually it's being seen, and that just makes it really difficult to actually monitor your landscape. So at Figaf, we started out developing a tool to do testing, and then we found out we actually to do testing really well, we needed to add some more capabilities for it. And with that, we just ended up building a DevOps tool, I guess is the idea. Yes. So Tatum, yes, the thing that you have all the communication channels that you need to go in and change, and that's really a challenge as I see it. And some of the things that we have been trying to avoid. But yeah, we built this tool, and then it just exploded, and right now we have just added CTS transport. So let me go through what the Figaf DevOps tool can actually do in this perspective, and I would really love your feedback on anything that we need to add, change, or anything like that. So please leave in the comment. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate that. So the reason why you need a different tool, and someone you also mentioned active control, and I guess that's because the SAP ABAP transport role is really not there. You need some better way of managing these things, managing testing, stuff like that. So you need some better control over what is being tested, what is being changed on the system, and especially if you have you're outsourcing the task to external developers, and you want to make sure that they are delivering proven integrations. You want to be able to test all the integrations that you're making really simple. You obviously want to deliver integrations faster, because I would assume you got a number of integration projects going on that you need to work on. It is also becoming a hot topic, this thing about having the audit trail, understanding why something was changed, what was the reason behind it, and then you want to do some cheaper development, because cost is obviously a factor. So the less time people are spending on it, the better. So with the Figaf tool, we do have two options. One is the new one, that's the CTS integration that we have added. So this is a way of augmenting the CTS transport. So instead of you just having a transport number, you can actually see what's inside it. You can test all the objects, you can configure it, transport it, or once check that it's transported, you can configure the communication channels. And once it's imported, what did I write there? I guess you get it documented. And the other tool is, it handles all the configurations after import. And the other is the one we have had for a year, is if you do not use CTS Plus, but want some way to make it easier for you to actually understand these things, then you will, in the Figaf tool, you will create a ticket, you can assign some objects to it, and then in those objects, you can actually transport it across the landscape. So this is what I want to show. This process. So the idea is that user you would do normal development, will create a transport, he will submit it, he will then synchronize the objects into the Figaf tool. He will figure out, okay, I've created a ticket with these objects in. It contains this transport number. It will then enable you to test it, and user can then release it if you want to. Whenever the synchronization between these is obviously a little vague. You can define them as you want. He will then create the transport in the Figaf tool, saying what communication channels need to be on the different systems, and then he can run the import. And once you've run the import, it will synchronize the transport and configure the communication channels. And with that, you actually know what is going on in the system. We can then repeat this again to production, QA, or whatever landscapes that you have. The other system is not as complicated. Here, the Figaf tool would actually just synchronize the objects. You will then select these are the objects I want to export, or that's a part of this change. And a ticket is like a service request or a JIRA incident where you need to make some modifications to it. You will then be able to test the change. You'll create a transport, and once you do that, the Figaf tool will just export all the objects from the old system, and then you can then decide I want to import it. It will configure the communication channel. Probably these need to be. Oh, you'd probably select the import to QA. You'll import to QA, and it will configure the communication channels. And then it'll do the same thing for prod, and then you'll finish creating the documentation. So that was what I wanted to show, and let me see if I can actually get that to work. I think that will be the most interesting. If you have questions, just put them into the chat. That is why we create this as a live event. So if you have any comments or questions, you can get through with them. So let me first go into my repository. I have some objects here I normally do changes in. So I have my invoice mapping here, and let me just go through what this process would actually look like. So we will make a modification here. I hope you can see it, but otherwise I guess you anyway know what's going on here. Oh. So obviously the good thing is this comes on a different screen. I don't know why this is the most irritating thing. So I've created a We've created a change here, and let me also get into the CTS organizer. We will create a transport. Oops. And it's a pre-selected one. Now, obviously, that depends on what your systems is. We can then have our transportable objects. We will then release this one to CTS Plus on the different screen. And so Figaf tool is created by me, so I own it. Or actually, it's my team that develop it, but I do own it. And let me just do a change in the communication channel. That also relates to this scenario. So obviously you can change all objects here. Let's just take this one. So you can now do all kind of changes through it. So now we have 2 objects in our change list. And we want to export this. So we can see that's a transportable, and we'll release it for CTS transport. So now this is added to the CTS transport, and we can find it both in here, find transport here. We can find what has been transported today on this object. We can also here see what kind of objects it is. And sometimes you can see the objects. I have really not figured out when and why you can, or when it's possible. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. So the idea is that we will then, from the Figaf tool, here we will go in, we will synchronize, and the idea is here just downloads all objects, all changed objects, and with that you actually know all the things that has changed as a part of this system. As we can see, it is pretty fast, so 4 seconds to run this delta synchronization. Obviously, first synchronization will take a little longer time. So here we can see we have the export that has been created, and we can see there's 2 objects beneath it. We can go in and we can actually see on this one what are all the versions that we have of the message mapping. So we can do full version comparison, and we can compare all objects, what has been changed. Since it's a message mapping, we just need to compare the internal payloads. And here we can see that this value was changed from 2.2 to 2.3. Cool. Any questions, just put them into the chat along the way. If you like it, hit the like and the subscribe button. Good. So now we have synchronized. We know everything that is in the CTS, and obviously if you make new changes, you would also see them in here. What we can then do is we can assign it to a ticket, and the idea is that we're obviously doing things because we got it in a Jira request or something like that. So we will have a Jira ID service request, or whatever you call it, and you will have some kind of a description why we created this, so other people easily can understand why you did make this fix. We will change the multiplier. Good. We need to select the landscape, and we need to select the landscape where we're using the CTS deployment. Good. So now we have created this ticket, and for us to understand what is in the ticket, we can say attach all dependent objects, and we can now see all the objects that is a part of this transport. And the idea is that we need to understand who has made changes to objects, what the reason, and we can see who was actually the owner that made the last change to any of these objects. Good. Next up is we want to test this. So we obviously cannot release anything without it being tested. And what we have is, since we came from a testing tool, we have a lot of test cases and a test case way. If we got time afterwards, I probably will show you how easy it is to create test cases. But you simply just select the ICO, say the compare it, and you will run it. Is it possible to compare source and target in the version history? Yes, so you can go through all of these objects. So all of the objects that we have here, we can do compare with. So for all versions, so no matter which version, so if you're just looking at a communication channel, where we have communication channel. So here we have the communication channel. In this one, we have versions. So every time it does a synchronization, it will save the current version if it has been changed. And here you can compare objects and, oh, no internal objects. So here we can also see what was actually changed on this specific communication channel. So for all objects, you can see specifically what is changed, and it will do comparison between these things. I hope that was what you're asking for, Tat. Yeah. Good. So, and then because it knows what kind of object this is, it says, hey, you're actually using this message mapping. Then it knows I have these icons on top of that. And that was what we did here when we looked up the tool. Yes. Yes, it supports migration. I recommend that you watch the migration video. I'll just put the link into that one. So there you can see a little of what we're doing with migration. So the CTS, I don't think we have fully there, but the other thing is coming. And I think, Jakob, let's just take that one next. So, so right now we have, I think we ran it. So we can select which system we want to run it on. And when we're running test cases, it will send the data to the target system. It will run the processing, save the data, and then you'll be able to handle it. And then it'll run the comparison, so it will see what kind of output messages that we're getting here, so we can view the result. And here we will then see what has been changed. As a part of this, we can see there's some errors. We can go in and see differences here, and we can see there was this was what values we expected to have, and this is the value that we got. And yeah, maybe I was dividing by this extra amount or something like that, and that's why it has been decreased. And then the idea is obviously it needs to improve the process. Or yeah, you'll check here, you'll go through all these things. You can go in and say, we want to ignore a certain step. You can, there's a lot of paths where you can do ignoring to handle these different parts. So now we have gone through all of these, hopefully, and we can then say, okay, now this is our new data that we want to run with. And this is then the expected outcome. So next time we run it, this is what we would expect. And I think it is pretty simple to run these things. So I think you can just rerun here, and then it will run the same test cases, and hopefully it will get a successful result. Yes, so we are using the OData or the Simple Query API to do synchronization, and the directory API or integration directory APIs for these things. But there's a few quirks that they do not really work all the time and have some challenges. But I think it's working out, and then we also extract the payloads from it. So let's try to create the transport. So here it knows what is in the transport, and the idea is that we can actually see what is in each transport. And we can then see we got this value here, and we can compare our message mappings. We can see this was the value we got on the dev system. This is what we have on the queue system. And with that, we can actually see what has been changed along the way on this process. So we can actually see if it works out successfully or what is going on. So here we can do comparison. Repository obviously is not that difficult because you just have a simple way of handling these different things. On communication channels, it is a lot more interesting because here you obviously want to be able to handle comparison. And if we can see here, we can see what was the difference here between this and the one we want to apply. And if the thing we also have here is we have an option here to do channel configuration. And with this, we have the option to one place globally define what our communication channels is in the full landscape. So we can define all the values that is changed between dev, QA, and prod. Pretty easy. But yeah, I think it's because this one is not running that it's trying to fetch what are actually the values from it, that it takes a little longer to run. And query. Hi, Gorami. Yeah, if you look at the last episode I created, it's also on my YouTube channel. You can see what the migration tool is doing in real life. So here we can see configuration across the landscape. We can see this pull interval was changed. In this one, we have not defined. We have defined it as transport or non-transportable. We want to apply different values to it. So let's just do one here, and we can specify what the values of these non-transportable objects need to be in all the different landscapes. So we just have one place where in the QA system, this will be the values that you're getting. So it's actually a little interesting that I'm doing these things. So if I'm looking the wrong direction, it's because it's two different monitors, and I sometimes can see something on one screen and some things on the different screen. So now we have done all the things in the Figaf tool. We have tested, we have seen it works as we expected to do. Now we want to release it, and we will run the release. We will need to import it, and obviously you probably want to do that. If I hope I got this one. No, the wrong URL for it. Let me see if I got some. I got some estimates here. How are you actually doing your transport? Are they just being imported every half an hour, or are you asking bases to import these things? So for now, I'm just go here to the same transport. Hopefully, we can see we have the what's this one? I need to refresh. It's this one, DevOps, and we can then import it. And then this will import it to that target system. We can just go in to see the communication channels that they have been applied. So now is the time you need to ask questions. I'm not sure if you can configure those things. So if it changes type, I don't think we have that. And that's also going to be a lot of differences between the two schemas. So it will be a little difficult actually seeing what is going on between this. So I probably would recommend that you use the full FTP in the full landscape to handle that. Anyway, so here we can see that the transport has been imported, but it has not been configured yet. So what I want to do is I want to go to the Figaf tool, and in here I would then ask it to synchronize. Oh, sorry, I don't synchronize the T system. And obviously you can schedule these things to run at a specific point in time. So if you have scheduling that runs every half an hour, you can then put that into it. So now it will run the synchronization of these things. We can see there was a message mapping that was changed. We can see that was a CTS transport that was imported. And now we can see we got this transport here. We can see the C, 4C. We can see all the objects that has been applied here. But obviously you want to see that it actually is being configured. And if we do the refresh, we can see it has been taken out from the developer system, and it's been activated. And if we go into, I think it was this one, this communication channel, we can then see we got the 45 here as we changed, and we got the poll interval configured here without we actually having to do anything with these things. So that was a little about how you can simplify the transport process, and then obviously you want to import all of this into the productive system using this approach. So you just want to import and synchronize the landscape, and we can go to the ticket. So we have our ticket that describes this is actually the things we created to handle this. We can see that the transport we have here is now still in progress. They are on the QA, and now they are waiting to be imported on the prod system. So we got full visibility of what was changed as a part of this. And we can, if we had imported it fully, we could set it to resolve, but because I don't have a prod system, it's not possible. Then I can do the reporting here. I can create a report about what we were actually doing as a part of this. And the idea is then you can put this come on. So we will get this nice report with information, all the basic information we have, descriptions, Jira numbers, what were all the objects, when were they imported on specific systems, who had changed these objects. We can see what kind of test cases we had, how our runs were, and if there were any differences, we can see what each object that were transported that was a part of this, and see all this data here. So that would simplify the documentation processes. Any questions? Just put them into the chat. I know you've been pretty good at that so far. But yeah, so that was this process that I just went through, taking data, synchronizing it, handling all the different manual steps in the Figaf tool, doing documentation, testing, make sure everything was okay. And then you would still be able to interact with the ECC system or the ABAP-based transports using Solman, Charm, Active Control, whatever you needed for the import. And then you just have the Figaf tool as a layer on top that will then handle all these configurations. So let's see how many of these things we've been going through. I probably will skip some of this. So we have this thing about register all changes to the landscape, which tickets we created and how they were being used. We have a lot in the testing, and yeah, let me just give a short intro to it. So the idea is that we take data from your productive system or a test system for that matters, download them into the Figaf tool, and then we just send them through the Figaf tool to make it really simple to run these things with. So and then you saw the comparison, what that worked like. So to create a test case, you simply just go into, since it knows all the system, all the objects in the system, you can simply just select a number of icons, say record messages. Create a new test case. What does it need to be? Finance, HR, whatever makes sense for you. How many of messages do you want for each interface? And then that's it. You just press save, and then it will activate this. And you can then start the recording. And this is just about to select here. Then it will send this message to that PI system saying save the next 3 messages for each of these interfaces, and then you just go get a cup of coffee or something else and wait until it has processed this, or overnight, or whatever you want that makes sense. And once you have done that, you just select it, say create test case, and then you can use it as we saw from the development ticket. I don't know if these are running or not. Probably not. So that was creating test cases. Wanted to make it as simple as possible. And as you can see, when you're making changes, you have the option to massage and make sure that it always is current. So you only have current test cases, making it a lot easier for you to manage these things. And we also have a way that enables you to mask the test data. So if you have outside workers or consultants that are testing or developing on your interface and you do not want them to really see your HR interface, you can use that as an approach. So all data will be masked. They will not be able to see the data, but they will see that there's a difference in specific fields. We saw the create comparison, configure in the full landscape, documentation. Then just briefly on the support tool, we do have a support tool so one of the things I've seen is that people have these support inboxes and they are just full with messages and no one really knows which one they need to react to and how to react to them. And that means, yeah, it's a little difficult actually to do really support of what's going on there. So I wanted to build a tool that actually enable you to make it easier to learn while you're doing this and simplify and automate as much as possible. So we created a tool that works with all the different platforms, CPI, API management, and the PI where you get the component-based message alerts. The idea is that it will then download all the alerts. It will then set up a bunch of these rules, and you can then configure if it receives this error, do these things. Send an email, webhook, mute it for a period of time so you don't get spammed if something's failed, and you got the option to reprocess messages. So let's just see what our system has picked up. Any questions, put them into the chat. So here we have the DevOps or D75 system. Let's see if we have any errors. Oops. We do have some errors that were problem calling an endpoint here. It falls into the default rule, and we can see all the data we have here. We can resend the message from in here. We can see the full payload. We can go and create a new rule for this. How do we want to handle this? So it is really simple just to add new rules. Here we just say if we are getting this result, what are the title? How do we organize these things? So there will be just execute XPath expression 1. If it's true, then it will say, okay, now we got this rule. You can set up criticality. You can set up, do we need to reprocess or just cancel this? Do we want to get these alerts, and how do we resolve this? We can send it to an email or webhook. So now that rule is created, and next time it should see that as a message. So that's just a test tool or support tool, because obviously DevOps is not really DevOps if you're not handling the full life cycle from you start developing, configure to your support, and you can obviously link these alerts to tickets so you know why you made certain changes. But obviously you probably also want to do the documentation in Jira, Slum, and whatever you have. We do have the same control or the same support for API management. Well, something similar, I would say. And for CPI, we also have a lot in the Git development, Gradle, that allow you actually to develop faster, run Groovy scripts and stuff like that. You have options to do transport, testing, monitoring, and documentation. I think that the CPI is probably the place where we got the most complete solution to handle these things. So the roadmap, one of the things we are now considering is if we can actually synchronize our normal transport with CTS Plus. So if you, for instance, have Charm or CTS Plus to do some ABAP changes, that it will just send an event to the Figaf tool and we will be able to do the import there. And the idea is that we can obviously leverage that for CPI and API management. So if you have an ABAP function or functionality that goes live at some specific time, then you can handle it that. And isn't that the two same thing? I think it is. And then something about overtaking. I don't know if that is a priority for customers to understand if there's anything that goes on there. And if you have any ideas, we are open to figure out how we can actually support you guys, making it a tool that will work in your scenario. So the PI part does not link to a Git repository. Actually, as your DevOps may be possible. You have some APIs, and we probably need to implement a few more APIs for these things to work. But then you should be able to transport, if we get this external functionality of linking, transport and say, okay, now we want to import it at a specific system, then I guess that would also work there. Thanks. Any other things? So get started. It's easy, cheap. So you can actually get started on your laptop. It is really simple. And for instance, for this this DevOps approach to handle PI transport, you can actually use your own user. If you actually have option to handle configurations on your QA or productive system, then that would actually work. There's also the Figaf Cloud you can use, but that's more for PI or API management. If you want to run it real, it's a standalone Java application, but you need to connect it to one of these 4 databases to get some real support. The built-in database is good for proof of concept to see how it works, what it can do, but obviously it does not really scale, and sometimes it corrupts and stuff like that. So it's better to go with these approaches, and most of our customers is deploying this to Azure or AWS, and then they're using one of their databases, and then that database or that system has access to the SAP PI systems magically, because those Azure instances is connected to the on-premise installations. So pricing, if you want the DevOps for 100 ICOs, it is 15,000 euros a year. If you just want the testing, it is 10,000 euros a year. And if you have more, it is a little extra per extra ICO. So just to give you an idea of where it is, but I do think that this is adding quite a number of values, and depending on how much development you're doing, you will save a lot and get these benefits of governance, faster delivery. We do not have this object dependency to see if you are already transporting the same object. In the CTS world, it is becoming a little difficult, because if someone has exported something into the CTS, we can obviously warn and say, hey, you are also transporting this in this other transport, but we cannot really do much with it. So it will more be a warning system saying, hey, this object is transported to different locations. So that would be something there, depending on what you're actually seeing of those things. But yeah, I think it will be like a warning system that says the flag say this transport is also transporting the object that is in this object, and but yeah, as a warning object. And then to get started, you can go to figaf.com/DevOps. It probably takes you an hour to get started. It is pretty simple. If you want our help to help set it up, just send an email to support@figaf.com, and then you can see how it works and what it is able to achieve. So that was what I wanted to cover today. If you have questions, comments, feedback, put them into the chat or send me an email on this email. Yeah, okay, I guess it could set some kind of a sequence saying you need to import this before this. Hopefully there's no deadlocks between them, because you could have exported objects in different ways, but I guess that will just be something you need to resolve manually. But at least if you could get that as a warning saying that this object is in a current transport and what you want to do with that depends. Cool. Yes, thanks for watching. If you watched so far and liked it, please hit the like button. I really appreciate it. More questions, comments, please put them into the chat, or drop me an email on the email here. I will be happy to answer, or do a session with your team and show how this can actually be done. Yes, Sven, I will wait. I'm still here. Or anything else I need to cover in more depth, we can also do that. I am here. So that is why we're doing this. Cool. That's the best comment. Just wait. Yes. Tajam, thanks. Yes. As an IT manager, it really makes sense. If you're a consultancy, we're also trying to leverage that and say, okay, if you're supporting, and it especially becomes important if you have CPI and do support those, then the onboarding of new consultants becomes a lot easier. Yes, it will definitely be something for SAP, this solution. Try to convince them that they need to buy it would be a better approach. But yeah, if you're going out having a common set of delivering SAP integration to a consultant or to your customers, it really makes sense, because then you don't need to train consultants on governance processes of each of the different landscapes, and then it becomes a lot easier to deliver consultants to these things, or to the different products that are handling it. But yeah, CPI is also really a selling point in this. If you just have one instance, you can use it. It actually has multi-organizational so you can actually have one organization per customer you support. Uh, Yeah, I think that's also a bit of a challenge. They don't really know, as IT manager, what's the best approach and how do we actually handle some of these things, and what's a reasonable way to handle your integration. What's the best practice? Because obviously you come from a background that says, "Hey, we are doing SAP in the SAP approach. Please use that." But how do we actually handle, and what's the basis becomes difficult handling these things. Um, but yeah, I was talking with a couple of managers yesterday on some of these topics about integration, that it's important for them. But it's like we have this outsource. If it does not work, it's the outsourcing partner's problem. But anyway, it falls back to you as a manager. What's your strategy? How do you handle these things, and how do you automate these things? Thanks, Finn. Appreciate it. And let me know if you can convince SAP to buy the solution. Would appreciate that. But yeah. But thanks for being here. Hope you enjoyed it and could see some benefits of it. Go try it out, figaf.com/DevOps, or just figaf.com. I guess it's the same thing. And it is simple to get started. And if you want more tailored sessions, just ping me or get started. So thanks for joining. I hope you enjoyed this show. And let me know if there's any thanks, Suresh, any other topics that you want me to cover in this. I forgot the other thing I just wanted to read. So if you're doing PI and CPI, there's a video here that just shows that process and what it is able to achieve there. Sam, thanks, Alexandra. Yes. Cool. But glad you enjoyed it. I will go, I'll turn off now. So thanks, and speak to you soon. Thanks, Finn. Yeah, that would be a good idea to do it in one of those SAP events.